Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome to my presentation. My name's Bill Breeden. I'm a member of the St. Louis Astronomical Society, and I've been asked to do a presentation on my constellation tours that I've published on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to go over a very high-level overview. I'm going to try to limit this to 30 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I've got a YouTube channel where I go over the entire sky, all 88 constellations, one by one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about the tours. I'm going to go over my production process. I'm going to talk a little bit about Stellarium because that's the program I use to present the constellations. I'll talk a little bit about how I record my videos and how I create my YouTube channel. And then I'll wrap up with some interesting stuff. Here's an overview. I have a YouTube channel, and I'm not here to promote it. I'm just here to talk about how it was done. And my channel is William Breeden 4. That's the channel name. And I have uploaded my constellation tours there. And what I've done is just done a presentation, and each presentation focuses on one constellation in the night sky. And I try to keep them between 10 and 30 minutes. So if you go to my channel, this is what it would look like. It shows you me, and then here's some thumbnails for 8 of my constellation tours. And you'll see that there are a few other things on my channel besides these constellation tours. For example, I've got some other astronomy related videos out there, but tonight I'm going to talk about my constellation tours. And here's another page of them. So this is what the thumbnails look like. This is how my channel is presented.
That's very good.
Okay, if you look at one constellation tour, you'll see this thumbnail where you'll see a background that was captured from the tour itself, the constellation tour number, and then the name of the constellation that tour is going to present. This particular tour is about 22 minutes long. So where can you find my tours? You can find them on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/William Breeden 4. So if you're interested in seeing any of them or using any of them to review constellations or maybe share them with other people that are interested in particular parts of the sky, you're welcome to do so.
Ooh, very nice.
And now as far as each individual constellation tour, they each have their own link. So if you decide to share one with someone, you can simply go to that tour. For example, Orion is constellation tour 42. And if you click share, it will create this unique link to it, and you can send that to people, and that'll take people directly to that tour.
That's good.
So let's talk a little bit about the tours themselves. Why did I take the time to do this? Well, it was during the pandemic in 2020, and I missed astronomy outreach. I mean, that's the part of astronomy I enjoy the most. I'm mostly focused on astronomy outreach and dark sky visual observing. I know there's a lot of facets to amateur astronomy. Those are the two parts of it that I enjoy the most. I wanted a way to continue to do my part to bring astronomy to the public. In the pandemic, everyone was jumping on Zoom and YouTube, so it was just the perfect time for that. And my constellation tours air on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. and I chose Monday evenings at the time because I looked at our calendar and for the astronomy club, and Monday nights were pretty much free most of the time, so it didn't conflict with anything. And I chose a short run time for each tour of 10 to 30 minutes to keep my rambling to a minimum. Most of the tours are about 15 minutes long. The more interesting constellations will run a little longer, 20 plus minutes, 22 minutes. And the smaller, more obscure constellations will typically run about 10 minutes. And sometimes what I do with the shorter ones, the smaller constellations, is that's the time I'll take to introduce some concept of visual astronomy. Like I might talk about eyepieces for a minute or two, or I might talk about the difference between apparent field of view and true field of view. So if it's a really small constellation with not much to show, after I finish going over it, I will introduce some concept in astronomy, whatever strikes me. I tried to record these in a way where you feel like I'm really there, the way I would actually interact with the public. So they're very informal, and they're very relaxed, and they're very just general.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move on in my production process, and here it is in general. I create a YouTube channel.
Yes.
You only have to do that once, and you're done. You have to have a place to put your videos. So if you already have one, you already have a place. Then I prepare my tour content. So I actually sit down, pen and paper or spreadsheet or whatever. In my case, it was a spreadsheet. And I prepared the content for the tour that I'm going to record. Then I actually conduct and record the tour on my computer as an MP4 file. So you have an image of Stellarium and what I'm showing you, and you have my narration. That's the hardest part.
Yes, it is.
Then I go back and create a thumbnail, some way to represent my tour on YouTube. Then I upload it as a premiere on YouTube. YouTube videos can be premieres, they can be private, or they can be public. And the difference is a premiere waits till a certain date and time to become available. So you can schedule the release. And public means it's available right now to everyone. And private means it's available only if you share it with people right now. So I chose Premiere as the format for mine.
Good.
After that, I add the tour to the Night Sky Network calendar, and then I notify the membership of the tour. Tell them the date and time, invite them with a yes or no for RSVP. And it's not necessary to do that for you to watch one, but if you were going to watch it at the time it premieres, I was using the data to compile statistics on members that are following the tour program as sort of an educational curriculum Now for each tour, I do a personal introduction and the name of the tour. So I introduce myself. I'm Bill Breeden, and tonight we're going to go over Orion, the Hunter. So for example, then I set up my Stellarium settings during each tour, the location, the date, the time, and the field of view. So I get that all prepared. And that depends on which constellation I'm looking at, because they're not all up at a certain time of year. They're not all up from certain places. So you set all that ahead of time based on which constellation that you're presenting. Then I show the lines and boundaries to show the shape of the constellation on the sky. Then I go over the sky region. So if I'm talking about Orion, I'm going to talk about where it is. Okay, it's in the south tonight. You've got Monoceros on this side of it. You've got Lepus underneath it. You got Taurus up here to the right. So I introduce the region of the sky where the constellation is. And then how to locate the constellation. Some of them are easy because they're signposts. Some of them are neighbors to signposts. Some of them are neighbors to neighbors of signposts. And some of them you have to star hop to. So I go over how to find it. And then finally I show the mythical or artwork figures for them. And then finally I go over the best viewed months, when to see the constellation rather than seasons, because the seasons are reversed in the southern hemisphere. So I talk about months. So in each tour, continued here, this is my favorite part of the tours. I then go over the bright stars. So now we're getting into the stargazing part. We're pretending, remember, this is virtual during the pandemic. Dim the lights, pretend you're actually doing some stargazing. Go over some bright stars, show people Alpha Orionis, Betelgeuse, show them Bellatrix, show them the belt stars and the names of them. go over any double stars and variable stars that are of note in the constellation.
Okay.
And I have that all prepared ahead of time.
Right.
And then I make it dark. So after we see the constellation from a suburban sky in Stellarium, for most of the tours, then I progress to a simulated dark location. And I set Stellarium's sky conditions to a darker selection.
Okay.
So I make it dark. Pretend we're going from Francis Park in the city to Danville, one of our dark sky sites. And then finally, my very favorite part of each tour is to look for deep sky objects, and that's where the most of the time is spent.
Okay.
We're doing visual stargazing, we're star hopping, and we're finding different deep sky objects. And I made sure that my 88 tours cover the entire Messier list and most of, if not all of, the Caldwell list.
Good.
And a very large number of the brightest and best of the NGC, like the double cluster.
Okay.
So, excuse me.
Okay.
After that, it's time for any bonus material. So if I look at the time clock on my recording and go, oh, I'm only 11 minutes into this, I got time to talk about something. So whatever's on my mind about stargazing in general, I try to go over some of that, observing concepts such as eyepieces and field of view.
Right.
And then finally, I just sign out with good night and good seeing. So that's the process of making each one, and I tried to make them pretty standard, which is great. But at the same time, I reviewed my own tours, and by the 40th time you hear me introduce myself and talk about how I have Stellarium set up, it gets kind of repetitive. But most people aren't going to watch all 88 of them. I accepted that. If you live in the southern hemisphere, you might be interested in crux, and you might happen upon my crux video. So you may only watch one.
Right. Well, shame on me.
So now, any questions so far?
I don't know, because this is going to be my first big one.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll go on then.
Okay.
Stellarium Basics. We could do a whole class on Stellarium. I'm only going to cover the very basics that I use to create my tours.
Right.
So when you open the program, it's going to open to the current date and time. It's going to open to your current location, and it's going to open facing south.
Okay.
Not sure that's true in the southern hemisphere. It might look north. I don't know. But this is what we see. And across the bottom, see your current location, your current field of view, and the current date and time.
That's very good.
So that's how you get your bearings. So the first thing I do in Stellarium is I choose my location, date, and time. So if I need to change it to Buenos Aires, maybe I'm looking at something in the far south. Maybe I need to see something in August rather than May. So I choose a date, a location, and a time.
Okay, that would be good.
I set it up for 60-degree field of view. Now that's the default when you open it.
Yeah.
Or you can hit Control Alternate 3 and Stellarium will take you right to a 60-degree. 60 degrees is important. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Constellation lines, C turns it on and off. V turns constellation names on and off. And B turns boundaries on and off. And the cardinal directions, northeast, south, and west, Q turns them on and off. So I just got used to using the keyboard shortcuts while I was narrating.
That's great. I love that.
So here's the location interface. We'll not go over the whole thing. But you can type in a search here for the place you want to go to. And you can choose it and close it. And that will put you at that location. So you can see I've chosen Buenos Aires here and it's filled it in down here for me.
That is nice.
And here's the interface for choosing your date and time. And it's going to be the date and time from your location, not universal time.
Yeah.
So if you're in Central Standard or Central Daylight, it knows that because of where you are. So choose the year, month, and day. Choose the 24-hour format, minute, and second. And that's displayed down here when you're done.
That's nice.
So you know you have, it even shows you the universal time conversion, which is cool. Okay, I told you I was going to talk about field of view briefly, so here we go.
Okay.
When you're setting your field of view in Stellarium, you have these icons up here.
Mm-hmm.
The 60-degree field of view that I talked about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
that's the general what you can see when you look up with the unaided eye.
Mm-hmm.
Now you look up without turning your head,
Mm-hmm.
and not taking in too much peripheral vision. You're basically taking in about 60 degrees at a time.
Good.
Just in general.
Okay.
And you can do that with Control-Alt-3.
Mm-hmm.
These other two field of views are important to remember.
Mm-hmm.
A 6-degree field of view is an important number to remember because it's generally the field you see when you look through binoculars or finder scope. And to quickly go to that, you click on the Telrad icon in Stellarium. And I think Stellarium will go take you to an 8-degree field of view instead of 6. That's close enough. So in general, most binoculars are going to give you a 6 to 8-degree field of view. So I always keep that in mind.
Okay.
And then finally, the eyepiece icon will quickly take you to about a 1-degree field of view. Of course, it depends on which eyepiece you've selected in the software, but that's just a general rule. And 1-degree field of view is a good frame of reference for a general purpose eyepiece view.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those of you with a 100-degree field of view, apparent field of view, ethos, in a Dobsonian, you know, you're gonna, you might see, 3 degrees through that eyepiece.
Okay.
And then me, I've got an F10 Schmidt-Cassegrain, and if I've got a 9mm Delight eyepiece in there, I'm gonna get a 1/3 of a degree. But 1 degree is a good place to start. So if you just remember these 3 numbers, 66 and 1, it's good general reference for what you're seeing in Stellarium when you're looking at it compared to what you would see in the real sky.
That's great.
So here's what Stellarium looks like with constellation lines turned on.
Okay.
And here is Stellarium's search function. So when I get to the point where I'm searching for deep sky objects, you can hit the search function, the little magnifying glass that appears over here on the side when you're running the program.
Okay.
And you get this interface.
Mm-hmm.
And you just leave it on object and you can type in a catalog number here.
Okay.
NGC362 or whatever.
Go.
And you also have the Greek letters here. So you can quickly type in Bayer designations like alpha.
Okay.
So if you were looking for, let's see, Iota Cancri, for example, you could just click on the Iota icon here and then CNC, and it would take you to Iota Cancri.
Okay.
So here's what the Telrad view looks like in Stellarium. And I've got this set up to about a 5-degree field of view. You can see down here it says field of view 4.85 degrees. So this is what the Telrad view looks like.
Okay.
Also binocular view. They're about the same.
They are?
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh.
So briefly I want to talk about, any questions so far? Okay. I want to talk about Planetarium mode versus star chart mode for a minute. Okay?
Okay.
Those aren't really what they're called in Stellarium.
No.
Stellarium doesn't name them.
No,
You can just turn features on and off. But for the purpose of clarity when I'm conducting my tours, when I refer to Planetarium mode, I'm talking about having few or no markings in the sky.
Right.
So you see what you would see if you're looking up.
Right.
Maybe I've got a few star names, maybe not. Maybe the cardinal directions are on.
Right.
But in general, it's just a more realistic night sky.
Yeah.
So when you hear me in my tour say, we're going to switch back to Planetarium mode, that's what I'm talking about. We're turning off most or all of the help. Star chart mode is the opposite. So when I turn on constellation boundaries, and we turn on deep sky objects, and we turn on star names, we're now using Stellarium more as a star chart than as a planetarium simulation. You look up in the real sky, you don't see all this. This is what you're going to see when you're looking at a star chart or an app. So when I'm conducting my tours, I will say, we're going to go into star chart mode, which means I'm just going to turn on a bunch of functions. And we're going to go into planetarium mode, which means we're going to actually simulate some real stargazing. So what I recommend, if you decide to just play with Stellarium at home and enjoy some simulated stargazing on cloudy nights, or maybe you have mobility issues and getting out to a dark side's just not in the cards. Use Stellarium without anything turned on, so that, without any of the markings turned on. That way you can actually, simulate what it's like to try to find things in the sky the old-fashioned way. So that's planetarium mode versus star chart mode. So that's what I call it in my tours.
That's nice.
Questions?
No, I like them. I just like them.
Okay. Now, here's my process for recording a video. If you're planning to create a YouTube video, you obviously need content. So record a few of them and see what you think. Record your video and narrate. Don't be afraid to narrate. Use screen capture software, a webcam or a digital video camera, whatever technology you have and you're comfortable with, and name your video and save it to your file system. So in my case, I've got a NAS, the Network Accessible Storage Device. It's basically a hard drive that connects to your router instead of your computer. So I save them all there, and it's got immense storage space, terabytes of space. So that's where I store all my videos, and I store, the ones I messed up on and all that. So that's where I do my editing. Here's an example of my file system. This is that's my NAS, my network storage device. And then I've got a file system here, and I have a folder called Constellation Tours. And I name them, each one is named. It's named with the number and the name of the constellation. And then, of course, it shows you the size of the resulting files. So if you're going to do anything like this, have a system set up for managing your data, managing your output.
Yeah, you could actually do that right over here. And look at them.
So after,
go ahead.
So that's okay. After you've recorded your video, in my case, what I would do is go back and create a thumbnail, because you want something to represent your video on YouTube. In my case, I would play the video back and do a screen capture, and then use the text editor to put the titles in. So this is an example of the thumbnail I created for my Dorado Constellation Tour. So I capture the image, save it, edit and include the name, and then save it again. And that is actually, these thumbnails are out on my network device storage too, in another folder called Constellation Tour Thumbnails. And this is an example of some thumbnails. So these aren't the tours themselves, these are just the thumbnails that I use on YouTube. So this is kind of how I put the channel together.
I like this. I'd
So,
like to see what
any questions?
they're doing.
Okay. So I'm not going to go into real detail about how to create an actual channel, because it's actually pretty simple. If you have a Gmail account already, or anything associated with Google, you pretty much already have a YouTube channel. You just have to go. You just have to provide content and fill in some data for it. So if you go to YouTube, if you go to studio.youtube.com, this is what your dashboard will look like. You can put an icon of yourself or however you want to represent your channel, and you have all these different sections to manage your channel here. And this is the dashboard. So it's just going to show you some general stuff about your channel. This was the last video that had played. It shows how many people watched it at the time, how many subscribers that I have in to my channel. So just basic stuff.
Yeah, other things.
And
can come back
again,
in.
here's what you want to do. You need a Gmail address or anything Google related, because
Mhm.
YouTube is owned by Google.
Okay.
Sign in and visit studio.youtube.com. And if you want more detail about how to do all this, you can find it on the internet.
Okay.
Okay. Then in your channel, you want to go to the content section, and this is where it's going to show you all of your videos and all the stats for them.
Yeah.
And whether they're premieres, private, or public.
Yes.
And this is where you have your create icon.
Okay.
So here's the thing about this. You're not recording the video here.
No, right.
You're not actually.
You mean me and Mary?
You're not talking into a microphone and recording here. This is what you do after you've actually recorded your video with some other software and captured it, like with a webcam or with an app on your computer that's actually captured your video already. This is where you go, even though it says create, you're really uploading it.
Okay.
You're uploading your video, and once you do that, you're naming it, you're describing it, and you're attaching a thumbnail.
That's good.
Okay, and this is also where you select public, premiere, or private. And you'll notice it's on public. It's already aired.
Good.
Once it's already aired, it's no longer a premiere. Anybody can watch it.
Okay.
So, any questions so far? Because I'm almost done. Trying to keep it under 30 minutes. I think we're at 25 minutes. So, I've got a few interesting tidbits about this process. The total runtime of my 88 tours is about a day, about 24 hours. It just worked out that way. 15 minutes average times 88. It just works out to about a day. So if you want to watch them one after another, set aside a whole day.
Okay.
Unless you're tired of my voice already.
No.
Several SLAS members, by the way, have attended all of them so far. And
in all those
there have been 84 of them have aired. There's only 4 left in the series, and the final 4 will air this month on Monday nights.
Yeah.
Numbers 85 through 88. But there are several SLAS members that if I use the RSVP responses in Night Sky Network that have attended all of them so far.
That's right.
And there's several that have attended at least half of them. So I'm kind of tickled by that.
I am too.
Each tour took about 2 hours of work, surprisingly, for a 15-minute video. That includes the preparation, listing what I want to cover, the actual recording and narrating, going back and editing, and uploading it to YouTube, and then scheduling it on Night Sky Network and notifying members. So there's about 2 hours of work with each video.
Okay.
And I did record them all ahead of time during the middle of the pandemic, from June 2020 until February of 2021. That's when they were all made.
Right.
Interestingly, the whole project didn't cost me anything. I already had a computer and a webcam. I had a network drive for the file storage, and Stellarium's free. So it just cost me time. And just interestingly enough, I work in the IT field, so the planning and organization of the project was kind of natural, use of my skills. I'm just kind of naturally an organized guy. I don't know, it depends on who you ask, but I feel like I'm organized. And it was fun use of it. So instead of applying my skills for IT, I got to apply my skills to astronomy, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And finally, computing viewing stats next year. So if you want to find out how many people have watched these, how popular they've been, whatever, I'm going to probably wait until 2023 to do that, because some have been out there for 2 years and some have only been out there for a week because of the release dates over the last 2 years. So I'm going to wait a while and let them all kind of catch up and see how they do before I release any any viewing stats.
All right.
So anyway, that's my presentation. Any questions? Thank you, everyone.